Hello, and welcome to the Reimagining Ourselves podcast, where we spend time dreaming of what we could heal and what we could become. I'm Cassandra. I'm a life coach and therapist, and I come to you with a decade of experience working in the mental health field and a lifetime of experience learning how to process and grow from pain and trauma. This is a passion project of mine, and 100% of proceeds from this podcast are put directly into the hands of people working for environmental restoration, indigenous reclamation, and urban gardening. Today, I will be sharing the simplest way to cure anxiety. There are many factors that can impact anxiety. Our bodies can experience increased cortisol and hormone disruption due to factors such as trauma, stress, and environmental toxins. In the book, How Emotions Are Made, Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett brings research on the ways that the brain interprets the bodily sensations we feel and pairs those sensations with an emotion, which we then often pair with a story about why we are feeling angry or anxious or whatever else it is. Because of this biological effect, everything from your morning cup of coffee to how much you've eaten in a day can impact your anxiety levels. There are also different environments that will make it easier or more difficult to incorporate this advice. For example, if you're experiencing abuse or oppression, those things will have an impact. And because every human is so unique, there are probably a million other factors that will impact the execution of this advice. But I invite you to give it a try because it is so easy and simple and you can start it from anywhere. So before we get into it, let's talk about anxiety for just a moment. Anxiety often manifests as racing thoughts, an increased heart rate, and an impending sense of doom. It also includes symptoms like irritability, muscle tension, sleep disturbances, and an inability to control the worrying. Cognitively, anxiety often includes ruminating thoughts on a future negative event. It's a way that our brains try to stop something bad from happening or prepare for some unpleasant experience that we anticipate. There's often a subconscious belief that if we could just think it through perfectly enough, we could stop the bad thing from happening or change the outcome in some way. But the reality is we just spin in circles and get ourselves worked up over something that may never happen. And here's the key thing. Even if it does happen, we're often no better off from having stressed ourselves out about it than we would have been if we gave it no attention at all. Instead, we need to build up our ability to trust ourselves and trust that we'll respond to a crisis or problem in the moment. But we'll talk about that more a different time because it's a little more complicated than the concept I'm going to bring you today. So, one of the easiest and fastest ways to cure anxiety from what I've seen is to bring yourself to the present moment. Now, this is a deceptively simple concept because it does take practice and intention. And depending on how accustomed you are to distracting yourself with screen time, numbing yourself with substances, or keeping yourself extremely busy with overworking and obligations, you may have a further journey to get to be able to sit in the present. But it's a practice, a muscle that can be developed, and you may be surprised when you look back after a week, a month, or a year. The reason that this method works is because for many of us, there is less turmoil happening in the present moment than what is being created in our minds. We often have options in our present experience to help us soothe ourselves and improve our relationships and overall quality of life. There are sensory experiences that can help ground us to where we are and who we are. If the moment is unpleasant, we are resilient and resourceful creatures who can do what we need to survive that moment. Bringing yourself to the present moment can be very uncomfortable and difficult work, but it's so worth it, and you'll start to feel those shifts after every opportunity you get to practice. The challenge often comes about when we do slow down and we start to hear our internal monologue, which might not be that kind. We might feel emotions that we don't want to face, and that could feel especially scary if we don't believe that we can survive them. We may have unpleasant memories or experiences that rise into our consciousness during this silence, or we start to have to spend some time with ourselves. And, for a lot of us, maybe we're at a point where we don't like ourselves. These kind of wounds can actually make that sitting in silence and slowing down feel intolerable. We need to remember to stay within our window of tolerance, which is this idea that there's basically an appropriate range for us to feel our difficult emotions and experiences. It's like a specific range of intensity that we can calibrate when we try out new skills like this mindfulness that I'm talking about. And I really want to make it clear that this window of tolerance is different for everybody. And it's important to remember that this window of tolerance is different for everybody based on those life experiences we talked about earlier and special factors that apply to them. So it's about giving yourself enough challenge to grow, but not so much that your personal resources are completely taken over and you're just dysregulated. And this is why anybody can use this method starting right where they are. You may not be able to experience much stillness if you're in a place with significant anxiety and mental distress, but the more you just nudge your window of tolerance by practicing, the more benefit that you will see. So let's talk exactly about how to become more present. Becoming more present could begin as simply as taking a moment to notice the sky in the morning or to reflect on the water coming out of your faucet as you shower. For many people, spending time in nature is a key way to reconnect with the world around you in real time. A meta-analysis completed by Katera, Lyons, Correa, Vioni, and Norton described the demonstrated effects of nature walks on relieving state anxiety. But I bet you don't need to hear the research. It's as natural as breathing to feel comfort in the presence of trees, plants, the ocean, mountains, lakes, rivers, anything from the natural world. Never mind how much we delight as humans when we see another animal. In my own personal opinion, there is nothing as powerful as feeling that connection with the rest of creation. Another great way to grow your experience of presence is through exercise. So for me, I feel that connection with myself when I'm walking on a trail or doing yoga or Pilates. But everybody has to discover their own brand of exercise that they actually enjoy doing. When you're exerting your body like this, it can occupy your mind and help you get out that energy, that anxious energy. Rhythmic breathing also helps to regulate the nervous system. The mental and physical focus on your body is an incredible way to become attuned to the space that you're in, your body, and the world around you. Speaking of your body, another important way to cultivate this presence is to become more attuned with our bodies. Embodiment is basically a form of mindfulness that is focused on experiencing yourself as a body. I will talk more about embodiment and the benefits in a future episode, so stay tuned for that. But for now, I just wanted to mention how crucial it is to view our bodies as an extension of ourselves. Rather than viewing them from a third-person perspective and kind of banging them around and not taking care of them. We are all experiencing a culture that completely disrespects these bodies that we are in. For women, as sexualized tools of advertising and manipulation, and for men, as disposable machines exposed to toxic and dangerous work environments. Obviously, I'm generalizing here, but I just want to call this attention to the harm that we're experiencing from the dominant culture regarding our physical forms. It's time to remember that we are not only our minds and our souls, but also our bodies, at least for this experience here on Earth. And again, later I'll dive deeper into how this understanding of our organic vessel can help heal so much of the damage that has been done. By the way, I can't fail to mention that this state of self-hatred and anxiety that many of us have been living in is often exacerbated by social media, especially when we're not using it in a mindful way. And I think that there's enough evidence at this point that that's not accidental. Unhappy consumers make advertising very effective. Platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok have only increased advertising in recent years, in case you hadn't noticed. Australian researchers Cara, Brown, and Hickman discuss Instagram's platformization of advertising and retail since 2016. All of this advertising impacts anxiety levels in a few ways. First of all, the extent of advertising revenue prevents certain social media sites from responding to undeniable evidence of mental health effects, at least without significant public pressure. I don't find it acceptable that we are constantly being shown images and videos telling us how we're not good enough and how we need to buy the next product to look better, be happier, whatever it is. In a vicious cycle, excessive consumerism and shopping addiction further exacerbate anxiety as we try to buy happiness, peace, and belonging. It may create additional financial stress and additional anxiety in the home due to clutter and disorganization. The list goes on, and there's so much money poured into marketing, it's just so unfair for today's average consumer. Ooh, different lighting. It was getting dark out. So I'd like to leave you with some words from Sherry Mitchell. I will leave a link to the Dancing with the Cannibal Giant video where you can hear this story from Sherry directly. And if you're so inclined, I would encourage you to pause this and go hear it from her. In the meantime, I'm going to repeat it word for word because I want you to hear it and consider how it may relate to your experience of anxiety. Sherry says, we have a story in our mythology about a figure called Giwok. Giwok is the cannibal giant. The role of Giwok is to sleep deep in the forest. He only wakes up when the Earth Mother calls out in distress because human beings are consuming faster than she can produce and harming her faster than she can heal. When he awakens to that call, his role is to lull humanity into a false sense of security and get them to dance. And he gets them to dance with him faster and faster and consume more and more until they actually consume themselves to death. And then the Earth Mother has the space to heal and renew herself. And the only way for us to put Giwok back to sleep is for us to wake up. So let's think about the ways we can wake up and stop dancing. Let's imagine how much less anxiety we will experience if we slow down, consume less, and connect more. Thank you so much for being here, and if you stuck around to the end, I am especially grateful. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and by the way, please take a minute to subscribe, like the video, and hit the notification bell so we can use some of this social media for good. That's it for now, but I'll meet you here next time on Reimagining Ourselves.